Welcome back to Films from Mars. I'm Ryan, and this is the channel where we explore movies from every corner of the cinematic universe. Today we're talking about one of the most overlooked films in the career of a legendary director, Steven Spielberg. The epic 1987 war drama, Empire of the Sun. A film with stunning visuals, emotional storytelling, and a breakout performance by a young actor who would become one of Hollywood's biggest stars. So grab your binoculars, keep an eye on the skies, look for those P-51 Mustangs, and let's blast into Empire of the Sun. What is Empire of the Sun? Empire of the Sun is based on a semi-autobiographical novel by J.K. Ballard, who actually has a cameo in the movie. The story follows Jim Graham, a privileged British boy living in Shanghai when his life is turned upside down when Japan invades China during World War II. Separated from his parents, he drops a toy in a crowd. Jim must learn how to survive a Japanese internment camp while holding on to his hope, imagination, and his love of airplanes. The movie combines a coming-of-age drama, a war epic, and a survival story in one unforgettable movie. Why I think this is the most underrated Spielberg movie is, as you can see his whole filmography here, I just don't feel like we talk about Empire of the Sun the most. Disclosure Day comes out soon, and I figured this is a great movie to talk about and to fit in with my channel and looking for overlooked films. I remember first seeing Empire of the Sun when I was young. This came out in '87. I would have been 5. I probably saw it when I was 7 or 8 or so. And I think some of the imagery in the movie really stuck out for me back then. Young Christian Bale's performance, he's pretty much in every scene of this movie. But seeing a young boy going through this, I think I probably in some ways, experienced, what a kid would feel because I was at that age. Spielberg, this is his 11th film. And, you think of some of his early work were Jaws and Close Encounters and E.T., and then the indie movies. This is coming right between Color Purple and Last Crusade. So this is his 11th film. He's directed 35 to 37. If you count 2 of his early TV movies, it's 37. But for comparison, just think about some of our great directors right now. I mean, Christopher Nolan's only made 13 films. Kubrick only made 13 films his entire life. Tarantino is at 9. He's going to eventually do his 10th. Paul Thomas Anderson's only done 10. Fincher's only done 12. So Spielberg obviously has had quite the output in his career. I know he was a young director, so he had a big head start. I was looking at some of his, peers at the time. Martin Scorsese's done 26 movies, but he did 13 documentaries. Coppola did 23. De Palma around 30. And then you got people like Ridley Scott, who's still making movies. Clint Eastwood did 44. Woody Allen, 50. And then Soderbergh, 33 movies. So I think Soderbergh and Spielberg, in a way, mixing the different genres they work on, I think are somewhat, similar. But I also think of some of the early Hollywood film directors like Michael Curtiz, who did 179 movies, and John Ford that made 147 movies. I mean, can you believe the stack that would be here? I bring this all up because, here's Spielberg really in a change in his career after, blockbusters like Jaws and Close Encounters and busts like 1941 and, huge hit with E.T. and the indie, bust with Temple of Doom, which is sad because it's probably my favorite overlooked Spielberg movie. But then you get a movie like Color Purple and, Spielberg saying, hey, I'm more than just a blockbuster. I can do dramatic movies. And I think Empire of the Sun is an important piece of his picture. I don't think Saving Private Ryan and Amistad and Lincoln and Munich would occur if it wasn't for Empire of the Sun and him trying to go back, to do much more mature dramas. So I think the biggest takeaway from Empire of the Sun is obviously Christian Bale. And it's kind of crazy. If you were to maybe interview people on the street and say, like, has Christian Bale ever starred in a Spielberg movie? I bet they wouldn't know, I mean, he was 13 in this, and I think probably the biggest takeaway from the movie is, like, he created Christian Bale as the star. Christian Bale, obviously, with this and Newsies always was, my favorite, young actor, and then of course American Psycho and Equilibrium and Rain and Fire and all this other stuff that he did, and then in the 90s and the 2000s, obviously propelled his star status. But Spielberg interviewed 4,000 kids for this role, and and I think it was an important thing for him to look at as many kids as possible to find the right actor, because Bale's character in this is literally in every shot of the movie, essentially. So there was rumors that other directors tried to do Empire of the Sun. David Lean was attached to this for a long time, but I can't imagine Christian Bale in a David Lean movie, or can't even imagine. It would just be a different type of movie. I think a little bit of the sugary sappiness that Spielberg has in his movies sometimes, I think is perfect for the material of Empire of the Sun. Not only is a young Christian Bale in this, but a very young Ben Stiller. I think he was 22 when he was in this. Joey Pants is in this. He actually was in Goonies, I think the year before. John Malkovich plays a good role in this, where kind of plays this like very Malkovich role, but you don't know if he's good or bad, if you will, and he's just trying to survive. There's also a young Miranda Richardson in this movie. So I think it's a great turning point in Spielberg's career. He was 40 when he did this, which is crazy to think that he's got all these other ones, left to go. But this movie always stuck out to me. I think the losing your parents freaked me out as a child. I think when I was a kid, I remember I was either in Disney World or at some crowd, and I remember grabbing some other person's hand thinking it was my mother, and I remember just being so scared, with that loss or whatever. And similar scene in this. That always stuck out with me. I think the Japanese pilot kid in this has a couple great scenes in there that always stuck out with me. I think the food in this movie, with there was like a nasty potato that they eat. I remember remembering that a lot as a kid. And of course the music by John Williams. Now I think the main score, with the singing, the choral chanting, obviously sticks out. Other than that, I think it's just a sort of run-of-the-mill John Williams score. But that song towards the end of the movie obviously made a big impact on me as well. So, a couple of fun facts about the movie. All the airplanes were real. I mean, it's 1987. It's not like they had CG or anything back then. But, they shot real, P-51 Mustang, planes when they did some of the scenes. So, there's an authenticity of that. And some of the beautiful sunset scene in this with the planes, I mean, it's just Spielberg at its best. Sprawling music and the visuals. One thing I think about when I look at Spielberg, everything from, I think it was Saving Private, or it could be Lost World down, is Janusz Kaminski as his cinematographer. And I think if this movie was done now, like how different it would look. This movie almost feels not overly, lit, like his later work. So I'm always curious, wow, if Spielberg could remake one of his movies, I think the visual look of them, especially with like maybe even color purple, and I think the Raiders and the Indiana Jones are lit really well too, and E.T. of course, but this one just felt really like just kind of TV soft in a way. Now I watched it on DVD recently. I did not have a Blu-ray. I don't believe it's in 4K yet, but I was just a little bummed that it didn't look a little sharper in at least my recollection. Another fun fact was Shanghai was recreated in Spain. They actually built the whole village and had thousands of extras. Isn't it nice to see movies where they had thousands of extras in the streets and things like that? So I thought the production design of this movie is quite good. And one thing about Spielberg movies, he constantly has different camera angles. Like if you're gonna do a set like this, you're not just gonna film one crowd scene and move on. I mean, he's got a shot from a building looking down on it. He's got, you know, all sorts of stuff going on to just build the scene. You know, so I thought that was beautiful. You know, and then airplanes, I think, are a big point in Bale's character's life. You know, the freedom, the hope, the adventure, the escape. You know, and the, you know, the dreams of a boy. And I think Spielberg, you know, 1941 and Always and yeah, I don't know if there's any other really that I can think of, but you know, you could tell Spielberg has, you know, this love of, you know, flying, you know, essentially, and you know, I think that's interesting symbolism with his character in this. So I don't know why this is fully overlooked. I think maybe it was coming off of, you know, Color Purple, Temple of Doom, you know, E.T., you know, and a drama from Spielberg. I think people might not have been ready for it quite yet. I know Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars. You know, okay, well, maybe the movies are like a solid 3 stars. Is it a Spielberg masterpiece? No. Do I think it's a very overlooked and people should watch it and they'll have a great time with it? Absolutely. You know, but I don't feel that people talk about it often. I was looking at an article recently because of Disclosure Day coming out, and there's a lot of Spielberg rankings of his movies, and I was actually pretty happy to see that Empire's Son was like in the 12s and 13s, you know, which is kind of impressive. AI was 6. I remember when AI came out, like people just didn't think that was going to be, you know, remembered. You know, so I think when you have 35 movies, I think it's easy for some of them to feel overlooked. You know, Always is the one I think everyone says is maybe his, you know, least good movie. I remember watching a few years ago. I'm really wanting to do a rewatch of that to really see, you know, is it really as bad as people say it is? Or is it just a misstep? Maybe there'll be a future episode. I don't know. But, you know, I think it's a remarkable coming-of-age story. I always liked and appreciated when Spielberg did war movies. I mean, Saving Private Ryan is probably my favorite of his. But, you know, there's the Civil War scene in Lincoln. There's a little bit of Civil War scenes in Amistad, if I don't forget. And then, you know, obviously Schindler's List, War Horse, you know, Munich to an extent. So it's just really, you know, and all the Indiana Jones, the Nazis and stuff. You know, so I'm, you know, it's just neat seeing him in that sandbox that his early movies were dealt with war, and you know, it's just a little step for, you know, his masterpiece Saving Private Ryan, you know. So, you know, I think people should give it a shot. I think Christian Bale, definitely worth watching it. I mean, he can be a little whiny at times in this, but he's a young kid, and I think he really holds his own with this. I'm almost wishing that they would do a movie now together. Like, how different that would be. I don't know if they're open to that or what, but can you imagine a Christian Bale Spielberg movie? I mean, you know, Spielberg's talking about doing a Western right now. You know, I'll take another 3:10 to Yuma type Christian Bale Western sort of performance. It'd be pretty wonderful. So another beautifully made 80s movie. I don't know how many of you guys have seen, you know, Empire of the Sun. How do you think it ranks among Spielberg's movies? Do you think it's overlooked? I think it is. But let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. More to come. Keep watching, keep collecting, keep spinning those discs, and thank you. This is Films from Mars.